This is The Wire for 2130 Zulu, April 29th, 2024. Precedence is routine. Information cutoff is 2030. Bottom line up front. Houthis down another American drone. Protests intensify in Ireland. The Hague escalates investigation of Israel's actions in Gaza. Beginning with international events. In the Red Sea Horn of Africa region, over the weekend, Houthi forces released proof of their shoot-down of yet another American MQ-9 Reaper drone in Yemen. Analysts comment. This marks the third shoot-down of a $30+ million drone in Yemen since the conflict began in October. In Ireland, mass protests against immigration continue as authorities crack down on demonstrations. Since protests began, Garda forces have responded with a heavy hand in many instances, causing further outrage throughout the nation. On the other hand, demonstrators set fire to an immigrant processing site in Newtown Mount Kennedy last week, as anti-immigration demonstrations become more deliberate and organized. In Scotland, First Minister Humza Yousaf has resigned following months of struggle to maintain his coalition government. In The Hague, Israeli media has reported that the International Criminal Court, or ICC, is preparing arrest warrants for those who have engaged in widespread war crimes. Though no details have been made public with any reliability, various high-ranking Israeli defense officials and politicians are rumored to be on the list, to include Prime Minister Netanyahu. On the home front in Arizona, a BNSF railway train derailed in Lupton, near the New Mexico border. As the train was carrying a cargo of propane and gasoline, the subsequent fire resulted in the complete closure of Interstate 40. Currently, the eastbound lanes of I-40 are still closed pending the investigation and incident recovery. The cause of the derailment is under investigation. Analyst comments for this wire. The recent rumors surrounding the ICC potentially getting involved in the Gaza conflict is substantial and vastly more impacting than the previous judgments against Israel from the International Court of Justice, or ICJ. Of note, the ICC has also publicly stated they are examining the same investigation for Hamas leadership. However, if The Hague becomes involved to the point of issuing arrest warrants, this will continue to highlight the vast differences in the style of warfare that Israel engages in. On the other hand, various pro-Palestine movements around the world have succeeded in overshadowing and warping what would have been a legitimate series of concerns had a more deliberate separation of issues taken place. As it stands, there are very few public movements who do not support Israel's actions as they pertain to the Geneva Conventions, but also do not support a global intifada or Islamic jihad. Protests and demonstrations around the United States and Europe are incapable of separating the two issues, which often results in apathy or exasperation with both sides of the issue. There are absolutely zero protests around the United States that desire to call attention to Israel's actions in Gaza without simultaneously and immediately turning into a protest supporting a global jihad. This is likely intentional, based on the funding sources of these protests, and intended to detract from the legitimate concerns present as the conflict rages on. Admittedly, this series of issues runs much deeper than the recent flaring of tensions in the Middle East. However, the impacts of these observations will become more apparent as current American foreign policy is shaped for the future. This concludes The Wire for 2130 Zulu, April 29th, 2024.